Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, Yahweh, Shem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Makakwadash. And I want to say Shalom to Yaakov Nakwath out there, pursuing this truth diligently. Coming at you once again with another lesson. And this is another edition of What Does It Really Mean? And the word that we're dealing with today is corrupt. Okay, corrupt. A minute. Turn on the light. So, as you can see, corrupt occurs 33 times throughout 31 different verses in the King James Version. And I think just about every, save for one of these scriptures, every single one of them is a different definition, I believe. All right. And that's why, again, another one of the reasons I make these lessons is because one word can have several different meanings. Okay, so we're gonna go and get it. And the first verse is actually the first time it appears in the King James Bible is Genesis 6:11. So let's head over there. And it says, "The earth also was corrupt before Yahweh, and the earth was filled with violence." Okay, so there was wickedness going on at the time. All right, and the Lord viewed it as corrupt. Okay, so the word you're going to see here is, it's going to be in the Hebrew. All right, because we're in Genesis. Hebrew, Strong's Hebrew, 7843. And the word right here looks to be, well, I'll let it pronounce it, right? Shakoth, right? Looks like it.
Strong's H, 7843. Shachath.
Okay. Shachath. All right, and when you go and do these, okay, you got to find out now, because sometimes there's the Briggs, the Brown Driver Briggs lexicon, right? And sometimes it'll have the scripture that you're looking for, and sometimes it won't. I've noticed a lot of the time it doesn't, right? It doesn't have it at all. So you got to, read the verse, okay? The earth was corrupt before Yahweh, and the earth was filled with violence. So you got to kind of use your thinking engine, all right, aka your brain, to be able to deduce which one of these it is, if it doesn't really show up in the Briggs lexicon. Bear with me 1 minute. Like it. But so you got I, all right, under I, A, B, and ABC, all right, or the first. This is like, I think this actually uses Roman. Yeah, okay, so this is 1, okay? So 1A, essentially, it says 1 again, but to be married, okay, to be spoiled, to be corrupted, be corrupt, be injured, be ruined, be rotted, okay? 2, or B, right? Piel, it means to spoil, and A and B says to spoil, to ruin, or B, to pervert, corrupt, deal corruptly. This is really the definition that we're looking at today. That's what Genesis 6:11 would be speaking of. All right, perverted and corrupt. So we're gonna, but again, what is corrupt? We're trying to figure that out still, right? It says to spoil, to ruin, to destroy, to pervert or corrupt morally, to destroy. All right, spoil and ruin. So let's go down and look for Genesis 6:11 in this lexicon. And we can see right here, Genesis 6:11, it means spoiled. Okay, spoiled, because they're using the this part. All right, Nephal. All right, to be spoiled. Okay, so going back down, there was it. I lost it. Here it was. So to be marred. I think earlier I said married. Marred. Okay, marred. Spoiled. Of waistcloth. Be injured or even. All right. So spoiled or marred. So now what we can do is we got the word spoiled and marred. Okay, a couple different things that we can do. We can go ahead and use the Johnsons and go ahead and use the etymology. Okay, so let's go and look at the word spoiled. Okay. So spoiled, and this is great, look at this. It says overindulged, injured in character by excessive lenience. There you go. By excessive lenience, but and what is lenience? Okay, Google will be able to give us that one. Tolerance. All right. They say the quality of being merciful, tolerant, and compassionate, but no, it's they can say that, but it's the word that really is here is tolerant. Okay, because the Lord's not going to be merciful towards them. All right, but because of tolerance, all right, allowing the existence of options for a period of time at least, because we know in the scriptures, it's right here, but right here, 11. So Ecclesiastes 8 and 11, we know this. It says, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, because a judgment for some fault or error or crime that was committed, right, isn't done, that day, that minute, that hour, all right? Because of that, therefore, the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. People feel comfortable to do evil because they feel like they're never going to get got, right? Verse 12, it says, though a sinner do evil 100 times and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know it shall be well with them that fear Yahweh, which fear before him. But it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he feareth not before Yahweh. So it's like a shadow. It's creeping up on him, and it's going to get him. But it might not get him that month, that day, that week, all right, that hour, that year sometimes, right? There's people out there that did wickedness in 1943 and are still alive, and, something horrible happens to them, and that's that punishment from all the way back then. Right? Just because you're 80, 90 years old doesn't mean that you're exempt from the judgment catching up to you. If you did something evil, that shit's going to catch up with you. Okay? But people see that as the Lord, not doing anything. And that's not that the Lord's not doing anything. It's that he's, I won't even say he's necessarily being lenient. I mean, he is being lenient. He's giving you time to, really what that time is if you're a Jake, that time is for at some point for you to come to the conclusion that you need to repent. Okay? So in a sense, yeah, that is mercy. All right, that is lenience, okay? But a lot of people don't use it correctly, and then, boom, end up getting got. So, what else? Spoil. Spoil in, strip an enemy of clothing. Deprived of someone or something. Yeah, so that's what we get, spoiled. Yeah, so spoil, all right, really means but overindulged by excessive lenience. And what are they overindulging in? Wickedness, okay? Wickedness. So let's go and look up spoiled. Perhaps spoil. All right, so spoil. We'll get the noun, I believe, first. It says, that which is taken by violence, which is taken from an enemy, plunder, pillage, booty. All right. That which is gained by strength or effort, no. That which is taken from another, no. The act of robbery or waste, no. Right here, 5, this is the case. Corruption. Cause of corruption, all right? But again, we need to know what corruption is. What is corruption? Get another one. To corrupt, mar, make useless. There you go. So mar. So let's go and look the word. Let's get etymology back. Let's go and look up the word mar. And let's go and look up the word corrupt. Okay. So corrupt, debased in character. What does it mean to be debased in character? Well, Google's AI should help out with that, right? It means to have a bad character, be of a wicked quality. Based means to be lower in moral quality, dignity, value, becoming corrupted, degraded, or spoiled. There you go. See, it's using the same words over and over again. Basically, to make less respectable. Okay. Implies a reduction from a higher, purer state to a meaner, less respectable one. Okay. Reduced dignity, right? So, and so on and so forth. So, really, it's debased or marred in character. So, corrupt. debased in character. So, not following what the Lord wants you to do, not living righteously, living wickedly, living corruptly, living sickly, doing sick, twisted shit. There's a lot of words that if you go back to them and you look into wicked, corrupt, abomination, a lot of those words are going to have the similar qualities of what they really mean is not living according to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. He set up laws and statutes and commandments for you to live by, and you're not living by them. All right, you're living corruptly. You are living wickedly. You are living abominably. Okay? And you are doing corrupt things, you are doing wicked things, and you are doing abominable things, okay? So a lot of it's similar, but it's different wordage, okay? Different wordage, they mean slightly different things. But as you see, corrupt also means to destroy or to spoil, to corrupt, seduce, bribe. Another word it can mean is to break, okay? To break. Corrupt also means to decompose, spoiled, and putrid, and that's essentially what this world is. It's just, rotting. All right, it's just rotting away. So mar means to deface, disfigure, or impair in form or substance. So it's an impaired form, okay? And you would be impaired in doing what is right. You were impaired, all right? What does impair mean? To stop from doing or have a difficulty with doing, right? To weaken or damage something, especially a human faculty or function, okay? To diminish a function, okay? To, dumb something down, to weaken, all right? To make worse. That'd be the best way to describe it, to make worse, okay? So we see that. Now let's go back over to the Johnsons and get mar. Over here, it says to injure, to spoil, to hurt, to mischief, that's wickedness, to damage, okay? So the world was, damaged, all right, and wicked, all right? And ultimately, we'll get the word corrupt. And here it means spoiled, tainted, or vitiated. So let's hear this word.
Vitiate.
Vitiated. So vitiate means to spoil or impair, and we already know what those words mean, so we can move on. Unsound, putrid. Unsound is great. All right. Unsound means not sound, not, the state it should be in. Not safe or robust, in a poor condition. Not based on sound evidence or reasoning, and therefore unreliable and unacceptable. Not competent, reliable, or holding acceptable views. Okay, so you're not doing that which is acceptable unto Yahweh Shem Yahushai, and that in itself is unsound. Right here. I already forgot how to pronounce this.
Vicious.
Oh, vicious. Well, no, it was, no, it wasn't vicious.
Vitiate.
I guess maybe this is the old spelling of vicious. Interesting. So vicious, tainted with wickedness, without integrity. There we go. Without integrity. What is integrity? Having strong moral principles and maintaining a consistency in actions, values, and methods. Of course, that which is acceptable unto Yahweh Shem Yahushai. And yeah, so it's vicious, tainted with wickedness. So the world, ultimately, with this version, Shakath is tainted, all right? Wicked, okay? Tainted and wicked, not according to how in the natural state as it should be in, all right? Doing wickedness and disgustingness and, vileness and, bad, all right? The earth was corrupt before Yahweh, and the earth was filled with violence, so it was wicked, okay? It was wicked. It was vicious and vile, right? And you can see it was filled with violence, all right? And that word just said vicious, okay? And what is vicious? Meaning.
Vicious.
Deliberately cruel or violent. And archaic means immoral, okay? So immoral. Not conforming to the accepted standards of morality. All right. And it was also talking about morality within those definitions as well. So morals are, doing that which is according to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. It's like that what is according to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. And if they don't do it, then guess what? They're lacking morals. They're lacking integrity. All right. They're lacking righteousness, and they're corrupt ultimately. So Genesis 6 and 11, the earth Once again, the earth was corrupt before Yahweh, and the earth was filled with violence. So this word of this definition of corrupt, all right, going back to shakath, all right, we already had it open. Shakath means essentially lowered down in a state of moral quality and wicked, all right, exceptionally wicked. Okay, so the earth was wicked before Yahweh. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, now the next one we're going to see, and a scripture that we see quite frequently as well, let me grab a drink here, is Matthew 6 and verse 19, which reads, lay not up for yourselves treasures, upon earth. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. Let's go and get 20 so we can keep it, together. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. So the word for this one, going down to prove it, is, right, Greek, all right, G853. All right, so that's this word here. Let's pronounce it.
Strong's G853. Aphanizo.
All right. And we can see right here is the actual version that it's going to be, again, just by using context clues. So it says to cause, to vanish away, to destroy, to consume. So to vanish away, to consume, to be destroyed, right? So lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth cause certain things to vanish away, or destroy or consume certain items, right? Consume means to use up, all right, to lay waste to, all right? Don't lay up treasures here where those things are just gonna vanish away. Okay, they're not gonna be bear with me. They're not going to be, they're not permanent. They're going to vanish away in one way or another. All right. They're going to be destroyed because first thing, the items here are built like shit, or they're going to be consumed as in, some way they're going to be, you're going to have them and then you're not going to have them, or vanish away, whichever way you want to take that as. Okay. Whichever way you want to take that as, whether it's going to happen now or when Yahushua comes back, because either they're going to be destroyed now and vanish away now, they're going to break or crumble, be consumed now, or at the very max, all right, that's going to happen to them when the Yahushua comes back. You're not going to be able to take your Xbox into the kingdom, going to hook it up into a TV and what a power outlet? No, not going to be able to do that. We're not going to have power outlets like that. It's going to, we're not going to have to have power plug. We'll probably have, Esau spent so much time trying to find out how to power things passively through the environment. And, now you have to plug in all these cords. We're not going to need cords. We're just going to be able to use the power. All right. Say if we had an electronic device or a screen or whatever, we're not going to have to plug it into a fucking wall. It's just going to be able to be powered. All right. Almost like Bluetooth. So, look at this. To cause, to vanish away, to destroy, and consume. Okay. And then you see, there you go. You see right there, Matthew 6 and 19. Cause to vanish away. So they're going to be, vanished away. Vanished away. So, I don't know if you can hear the dog in the background, but he's going at it. Alright. So bear with me 1 minute, actually. My tooth is killing me. Give me a minute. 1 minute. Alright. We're back. Slack for that. So, yeah, man. So that's what that one means. That one's, see, the first one was probably the longest one it took to get the full definition. Some of them are going to be quicker than the other ones. Some are going to be, a little bit longer. But simply, the word, let's go and get it. I don't even think we actually got the pronunciation, so let's get that. Slakia.
Strong's G853. Aphanizo.
All right, so aphanizo. So the word aphanizo in Greek really just means to cause something to vanish away. Okay, or be consumed, all right, or destroyed, depending on the context. So that one's easy for Matthew 6 and 19. Now you know, all right. So really, when it talks about where rust doth corrupt and where thieves break through and steal, this means where rust cause things to vanish away. Okay, and not just rust, but other things as well. You have items, and then they just start fucking not working, or they start breaking, and they just a lot of shit, especially in America. is built like fucking shit. All right, things used to be built better, 40, 50 years ago, but not so anymore. Hell, even 30 years ago, things used to be built better. In the 80s and 90s, things were built fine. It's, right around the early to mid 90s, really getting bad in the early 2000s. Things started to be built like fucking shit. All right, you had the old Nokia phone. If you just look up Nokia phone, it was the OG. All right, is it this one? Yeah. All right, this was September 2000. Now, this one's known for being, indestructible. Right? Damn near. You can run that over the car, you damn near hell. Beat someone over the head with that, they're done, man. This thing's ridiculously strong. Ridiculously strong. All right? I used to have one of these. All right? Back in, hell, I don't remember when it was, but, used to have one of these. I played Snake. And, yeah, man. There it is. Bam. Played Snake. Actually, yeah, I think this looks like Snake 2. I think it was Snake 2. Because I remember this diagram here. And, yeah, man. It was awesome. Alright, I had a little bit later. It was a track phone. I was like a kid. My uncle gave it to me. It was his phone, but he gave it to me. And, yeah, it had, like, a bunch of shit on it. Snake, right? Classic ringtones, right, that we all know. I don't remember if I had that many minutes on it. And about that was minutes back then. You had to buy minutes. But yeah, so that's what that one means. We can close out of that. Boom, bam. But yeah, things nowadays, they just break, right? Hell, sometimes you buy something in a month and it breaks the next week, right? That's how bad shit is here. So here's another one. Matthew 7:17, it says, even so, every good... let's start with 16, right? Because we're still reading scriptures here, right? It says, verse 16, ye shall know them by their fruits. Actually, let's go up from verse 15, all right? And it's titled, A Tree and Its Fruit. So Matthew 7:15, beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. So they look nice. They might even smell nice. They got nice, expensive cologne on, right? These are your pastors, reverends, all right, priests, all right, and you'll see them and all their, inwardly they're ravening wolves. They're for their pockets, man. They're not for you. They're for their pockets. It says, "You shall know them by their fruits." Really, that's by their doings. All right, how do they act? It says, "Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit." Okay, so what does corrupt mean in this case? Well, Strong's G45 and 50 goes back to the word sapros. All right, or sapros. Let's hear it.
Strong's G 4550. Sapras. Sapras.
Okay. And going back up. All right. A corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. So a rotten and putrefied tree. Okay. A rotten and putrefied tree. Okay. Or you could use, any of these. But I believe we can get Matthew. We can look for it. Matthew 7. Okay. No, actually, it's going to be number 2. Corrupted by age, no longer fit for use or worn out. Okay. Bad, poor quality, bad, unfit for use, worthless. Okay. So there you go. So that's dealing with Matthew 7 and 17. Okay. So a corrupt tree. So a poor quality tree, all right, is going to bring forth evil fruit. Okay. Of the similar poor quality. But if you go down, you can see it says a good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit. Neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. So there you go. And you can continue on and read, all the way down to 23. It would be, very, what does it say up here? Matthew's, down to 33, and then it also jumps over to Luke. It's a precept, right? So yeah, man. And that word sapros is another word that we've actually gotten before, because that's the same word in corrupt that Christians use. We'll actually jump it. All right. Ephesians 4 and 29. This is the one Christians always use, so you don't say bad words like the word shit, right? Oh no. Ephesians 4 and 29, it says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. So what you speak out of your mouth is supposed to, minister grace. It's supposed to be good and edifying, okay, unto those that hear it. And just because you said the word shit does not mean that the whole lesson was made non-edifying, all right? That's completely ridiculous. But corrupt here goes back to that same word, sapros, right? Mind you, we're in Ephesians 4 and 29. Now, if we go down here, we should be able to find it. Ephesians 4 and 29. There you go. Poor quality, bad, unfit for use, worthless. Okay. Now, of poor quality, what would it mean of poor quality? Does that mean the word shit is of poor quality? Does that mean it's a bad word? Well, when did words start becoming labeled as bad words? All right. Modern obscenity was born during the Renaissance. That's Esau. Okay. If you know anything about Renaissance, Renaissance means the rebirth. Okay. Renaissance. Yep. Right there. I don't even have to go get it. A fervent period of European cultural, artistic, political, and scientific rebirth. All right. It was rebirth because before that, Jake was in rulership. Okay. And after, Renaissance is after that 1,000-year period where Jacob was, thrown out of power by Esau. Esau was able to, get out of those chains, all right, and essentially overthrow. And that's why during that you had the Crusades, and through that they went and knocked noses off of statues, the iconoclasm, right, painting over historical paintings that actually had the prophets, putting themselves in the book. For example, this is a perfect fucking example right here, okay? The Last Supper is a known Renaissance painting, right? And you can see it that boom, right? They made everyone white, all right, except for him, all right, and maybe, yeah. So everyone else was white. Yeah, everyone else was white. So that's what they did, all right, and that's part of their rebirth. Is to be rebirthed, all right, to be reborn as something else, all right, and not necessarily the sense of the meaning of the word, but for Esau to essentially be reborn, they had to rebuild themselves as someone else. They couldn't be the Edomites anymore. They had to be the Europeans, all right, or so on and so forth. So, and with that, you can see modern obscenity was born during the Renaissance. Most of the bad words were around during Middle Ages. They just weren't swear words. These swears, often sexual or scatological in nature, reached their peak offensiveness during the Victorian era. So before, saying shit or cunt or any of these words wasn't necessarily bad, okay? They were just deemed bad during the Renaissance. And they were deemed bad during the Renaissance by the church. And again, we just talked about this the other day. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to ask it. I'm going to ask chat. If modern obscenity, i.e. swear, cuss, curse words are only invented during the Renaissance, why do most Christians claim Yahushua? They would call him Jesus. So I said, if modern obscenity, i.e. swear, curse words, were only invented during the Renaissance, why then do most Christians claim that Jesus, that's who they worship, right? His real name is Yahushua, would condemn them when they would not have, 1, existed, or 2, been condemned, as the stigma on those words wasn't created yet, in turn, not making them taboo. Okay, it says the question gets at something deeper than just language. It's really about how people interpret moral principles across time. First, you're right about one of the important premise. The specific swear words people use today didn't exist in the time of Yahushua. Language has changed constantly, so what counts as profane or taboo is culturally constructed. So no, Yahushua didn't literally condemn modern English curse words as we know them. Why do many Christians say he still would? They're applying principles, not vocabulary. Christians typically base this on teachings in the Bible about speech and character. For example, speech should be truthful, kind, and uplifting. Words shouldn't be used to harm, insult, or degrade. Where was that coming from? I'm going to ask. So it says, so when Christians object to swearing, they're often interpreting it as aggressive or insulting language, speech that reflects anger, disrespect, or lack of self-control. From that perspective, it's not about the word itself, but the intent. So not all Christians actually agree. There's a lot of stuff. I want to ask it this. Where does the Bible condemn insults or angry speech? And it's going to have context. Okay. Anyone who is angry with a brother or sister, okay, that's dealing with Israelites specifically, will be subject to judgment. And anyone who says you fool will be in danger. Well, first of all, to be a brother or sister, they have to be actively, in this truth. Okay, they're actively following the words and the teachings of Yahweh Shem Shai. We can go and prove that with So this is with Yahushua dealing with what he was teaching, all right? So it says, Matthew 12:46, while he yet talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brethren stood without, desiring to speak with him. And this is Yahushua, who the world would call Jesus, right, in their ignorance, right? And the Christians have a saying called, what would Jesus do, right? Well, let's see, what would Jesus do, all right? And his name's really Yahushua. So what would Yahushua do? Matthew 12:47 says, then one said unto him, behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without, desiring to speak with thee. Because they were waiting, they said, hey, I want to speak with him. So, they told him, hey, your mother and your brethren are standing, over there, and they're desiring to speak with you. And he said, Matthew 12:48, but he answered and said unto them that told him, who is my mother, and who are my brethren? And he stretched forth his hand towards his disciples. Who are the disciples? All right, what is a disciple? Okay. A dedicated follower, learner, or apprentice who adheres to the teachings and lifestyles. Okay. It said, particularly referring to those who follow Yahushua HaMashiach. Becoming a disciple involves trusting in HaMashiach, obeying his commands, and being transformed to become more like him. All right. So, and he stretched forth his hand towards his disciples and said, behold, my mother and my brethren. For whoso shall do the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same is my brother and sister and mother. So, going back, brothers or sisters are 1, Israelites, 2, that are in this truth specifically. If someone out there says, yeah, fuck you and your God and this Hebrew bullshit, you can say, hey man, you're being an asshole, fuck you. All right? So, are you in a danger because of that? No. Context. Okay? So, and I could argue with chat and go and get that and just rebuke it and do all this, and it would just be a whole long thing, and it would eventually be like, you're correct. Okay? Speech should build others up. So yeah, I mean, if you're building people up, still works. Put away. So Epistle of Colossians 3:8 says, rid yourselves of anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from your lips. So filthy language. Filthy. What is filthy? Okay, let's go and look that up. All right, let's go and get that. And this is what you got to do. You got to study to show thyself approved. You got to go in here and you got to search. So filthy. Let's see. Filthy conversation of the wicked probably fits the most. So let's go look at filthy. What is filthy? Okay. Unbridled lust, excess, licentiousness, lasciviousness, wantonness, outrageousness, shameless, insolence. Okay, let's get another one. This is filthy and polluted. Let's go and see this one. So, dubious. Okay, what is dubious?
Dubious.
Okay, doubtful, suspicious, untrustworthy, unreliable. Okay. Really, we can go and get Colossians 3:8 itself. I don't even know, I didn't think of that. But, filthy communication. Alright. Now, you see it comes from foul speaking, low and obscene speech. Now, again, Blue Letter Bible goes off. So you got to get down into the root words. So we got two, Strong's G150 and Strong's G3056. Okay, which are right here. Okay, so filthy, baseness, dishonorable. Okay, shameful. Okay, baseness. What is dishonorable? Okay, so dishonor. Okay, filthy, baseness, dishonor. So shame. All right, there you go. Filthy lucre. So all the other times it's used for shame. Okay, so shameful speaking. Okay, so shameful, and then this word just goes back. Shameful speech. Okay, so let's go in here. What is shameful speaking? Okay, now again, they're going to say it's insulting, humiliating, and degrading. Okay, using vulgar, hateful, or offensive. Now, can also mean shaming someone to control behavior. Religious. Okay, this is what we want. Okay, in Christianity, the Bible, Ephesians 5:4 cautions against crude or degrading talk. Again, you're not getting the point. Shameful. What does shameful mean? Okay, what does shameful mean? What does shameful mean? Okay, something that is embarrassing, disgraceful, or morally wrong. Okay, morally wrong behavior, cheating on a test, lying to a friend. Okay, the way they treated him was shameful. So something that brings shame. Does the word shit bring shame? No, it does not bring shame. Okay, something that would bring shame is teaching things that are not true. That is shameful. Okay, that is bringing shame, and you don't want to bring shame upon the ministry. Most importantly. Okay, now going back to so we got this word slakia. We already got that. So as you see, it says low and obscene speech. Well, again, if you go to what obscene means deeply offensive, indecent, or shocking, right? So you can't say anything that's offensive to anybody, all right? Anything that anybody would be considered shocking or indecent, all right, or immoral that they don't like, they can't do it. So according to that, if you're going off that definition, that means that anything that the people in the world that don't like about what we do, oh, that was obscene. That's obscene. It's not what it's talking about, okay? This scripture dealing with filthy communication is the same as really dealing with corrupt communication. So you got filthy communication and corrupt communication. And really what they mean is teaching things that are not according to Yahweh Shem Yahushai's will. Okay, teaching things that are wrong. All right, purposely leading people astray. Deception. Okay, and multiple different things. Teaching things that are wrong is the biggest one. Okay, so down here, we had the same word, corrupt. All right, that we got earlier, which was sapros, which is rotten, putrefied, of poor quality, bad, unfit for use, worthless. So worthless words. All right, poor quality words, bad words. Bad words isn't the bad words we know now. Again, these terms weren't around during that time, so how could the Bible be saying, oh, that's a vulgar or this or that, right? And then, well, you're talking vulgar. Well, if you want to talk about that, it talks about, the Bible talks about plenty of things that most people would consider vulgar now. All right, putting your rod into a woman. All right, there's one that would be considered vulgar. Waiting in the field to jump out and rape a woman, that would be considered vulgar. All right, and detestable nowadays. So you're using your modern brain, all right, which is really fucking, becoming very smooth, all right, and you're trying to apply ancient concepts to it, okay, and you're trying to say, well, no, that would be a bad word. Well, the word shit didn't exist, all right, so how would Yahushua have condemned it? Okay, how would Yahuwah have condemned it, all right, when the word didn't exist? Okay, well, it exists now, and now it's been labeled as bad. By who? Esau? By the fucking people in Victorian ages? By the Renaissance peoples, the Edomites? I'm not going to listen to a fucking thing they have to say. Right? So no, man, you don't get it. All right. And if you want to, limit your vocabulary and what you say by, appearing holier than thou by not saying the word shit, you go right ahead. But that's not what the scriptures are talking about. And those words didn't exist to be condemned in the time anyway. So get out of here, man. Move on. Beat feet. So corrupt, worthless. Okay. What does worthless mean? Okay. Having no value or use or merit. Contemptible and useless. Okay. So good for nothing, worthless words, okay? Worthless words, degenerate and villainous, corrupt words, okay? No good, okay? If you look up worthless, it actually goes back to the word corrupt, okay? So worthless words, worthless speaking, all right, worthless speeches, worthless speaking, okay? So, yeah, man. So they compare it to Strong's 4190, which means, in an ethical sense, evil, wicked, or bad. So wicked speaking, okay? Wicked speaking. That's what this word goes back to, is or to become corrupt or rotten. So corrupt, all right? Corrupt, and we already defined what corrupt is. So again, we can go and get it real quick because at the end of the day, corrupt, Johnson's does a pretty good job. Corrupt means vicious, tainted with wickedness and without integrity. So words that lack integrity. Okay. What does words that lack integrity mean? Untrustworthy, dishonest, and insincere. Okay, and that's how we've broken it down before. So untrustworthy words, dishonest words, insincere. All right, that's the real meaning of what corrupt communication is. Okay, and then finally, we got one more. Evil communications, right? 1 Corinthians 15:33, be not deceived, evil communications corrupt good manners. So what is corrupt? We have the word here. You can see it, Strong's G 5351, and it means, if it corrupts good manners, it what? Destroys. Okay? To corrupt, destroy. Okay? To lead away a Christian church from a state of knowledge and holiness in which it ought to abide. So you were led away from a correct state of knowledge, all right, into something that you shouldn't even be involved in. Okay? Your good manners were corrupted. Okay? Your good manners were corrupted. All right? And your good manners were in a sense also destroyed because you don't have them anymore. So that's what it means to corrupt. Corrupt ultimately is something that's unsound, tainted, all right, not according to the will of Yahweh Shemiao Shai, and is filled without integrity, all right, and with wickedness, all right. So that's it. That's what the word corrupt means. So that's where we're going to close out, all right. Lord, it was edifying. Again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Shalom to you brothers and sisters out there. Keep enduring. Keep the faith. We're almost out of here. Until next one, Lord willing. Shalom.